Hey, my name is Ethan. I'm 30 years old. I'm a carpenter. And 3 months ago I took a job renovating a kitchen in Brookhaven for a married dermatologist who asked for me by name. One night over blueprints and red wine, she looked at me and said, "Don't fall in love with me." And I leaned in close enough to smell the lemon oil on her hands and whispered back, "Then stop making it so easy." 2 weeks later, I was hiding behind her half-finished kitchen island at midnight, heart pounding, sawdust under my palms, while her husband's voice called out from the garage. If you're watching this right now, tell me where you're from in the comments, because I still don't know if what we did was wrong. I was crouched behind a half-finished kitchen island when the garage door started to rumble open. My heart was in my throat. My palms were flat against cold tile that still smelled like lemon oil and sawdust. The refrigerator hummed. The under-cabinet lights I'd just wired glowed soft against white marble. And somewhere in the house, a man's voice called out. "Amara, you home?" I held my breath. This wasn't supposed to happen. I was 30 years old, a grown man, a professional. I built cabinets for a living. I didn't hide in married women's kitchens while their husbands came home. But there I was. I could hear them talking in another room. Muffled voices. Hers was careful. His was tired. I caught fragments. Something about the hospital, dinner plans, whether she'd picked up his dry cleaning. Footsteps moved closer to the kitchen. I closed my eyes and thought about how this all started. About the phone call. About the way she first opened that door. About the night she told me not to fall in love with her. And how I should have listened. The footsteps stopped. "I'm gonna grab a shower," Marcus said from somewhere near the hallway. The tension in the air shifted. I heard him walk away. A door closed upstairs. I stayed frozen for another 30 seconds before I finally exhaled. This all started with one call about a kitchen in Brookhaven. 3 weeks earlier, I was standing in my apartment kitchen making cheap coffee on a Tuesday morning. The kind of morning where the sun comes through the window too bright, and you're already behind on something you haven't started yet. My phone was cracked. My laptop was open on the counter playing a woodworking video I'd edited the night before. And my inbox was full of invoices I couldn't pay. Then Jamal called. "Yo, E, you still looking for work?" "Always." "Got a client in Brookhaven. Doctor, needs a full kitchen renovation. Custom cabinets, the whole thing." I sat up straighter. "Brookhaven? That's... Yeah, money. Real money. She saw some of your work at that Decatur job and asked for you specifically." My chest did something weird. "She asked for me by name?" "That's what I said, didn't I? Anyway, you interested or not?" "When?" "She wants to meet today, 2 o'clock. I looked around my apartment, at the stack of bills on the table, at the past due notice I'd been ignoring for a week. "Text me the address." I showered, put on my least paint-stained jeans and a clean work shirt, loaded my truck with my tool bag and my portfolio. On the way, I stopped by the salon where my sister worked. Danny was between clients, leaning against her station, scrolling her phone. When she saw me walk in, she grinned. "Look at you, all cleaned up. Where you going? Job interview?" "Something like that. Can you clean up my neck real quick?" She spun the chair toward me. "Sit." While she worked, I told her about the Brookhaven job. She whistled low. "Rich people, huh? Just don't let them walk all over you because they got a gate and a lawn service." "I won't. And don't fall for nobody's wife just because she's lonely and smells good." I laughed. "That's not... Why would you even say that?" She met my eyes in the mirror. "Because I know you. You see someone who needs fixing and you forget you're not actually a therapist." "It's a kitchen job, Danny." "Uh-huh." She brushed the loose hair off my shoulders. $20. I paid her and left before she could say anything else. The neighborhood changed as I drove. The houses got bigger. The lawns got greener. The cars got newer. By the time I pulled up in front of the address Jamal sent, I felt like my truck didn't belong on the street. The house was red brick. 2 stories. Black shutters. A manicured lawn that looked like someone measured each blade of grass. There was a black SUV in the driveway that probably cost more than I made in a year. I sat there for a second with my hands on the steering wheel. Deep breath. Then I grabbed my portfolio and walked up the path. The doorbell echoed inside. I heard the faint click of heels, the clink of jewelry. When the door opened, I forgot what I'd planned to say. She was beautiful, not in the way you see in magazines, in the way that makes you realize someone actually lives behind their eyes. Tall, dark skin, hair pulled back in a neat bun, gold bracelets on her wrist. She wore a cream blouse and black slacks, like she was about to leave for work. "Mr. Cole?" "Yes, ma'am. Ethan." Her handshake was firm, professional. "Dr. Blake, thank you for coming on short notice." She led me through the house. Everything was clean. Perfect. Expensive. There were photos on the walls. Her and a man in formal wear. Vacation shots. The kind of pictures that look good, but don't tell you anything. The kitchen was at the back of the house. Big windows, white cabinets that were dated but not broken, marble countertops, a huge island in the center. "I want to tear it all out," she said. "Custom cabinets, better lighting. I'd like a butcher block section here." She touched the island and opened shelving along this wall. I took notes, measured, asked questions about her budget and timeline. She answered everything quickly, efficiently. But I noticed things she didn't say. There was only one coffee mug in the drying rack. Only one side of the closet visible through a cracked door down the hall. The wedding photos on the wall looked old, staged. "I have a busy schedule at the clinic," she said, "but I'll try to be around when I can to make decisions." "That works." She walked me to the door. We shook hands again. "I'll send you an estimate by tomorrow." "Thank you, Mr. Cole." As I walked back to my truck, I saw the neighbor, an older white woman getting her mail at the house next door. She smiled and waved. "New contractor for the Blakes?" "Yes, ma'am." "Well, you're very polite. I'm Mrs. Green. I live right here, so if you need anything—" "Thank you." She tilted her head, studying me. "Dr. Blake is lovely, isn't she? Such a shame her husband works so much. She's alone in that big house most nights." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just smiled and got in my truck. On the drive home, I kept thinking about the kitchen, about the way it smelled like lemon cleaner, about the one mug in the rack, about the fact that she'd asked for me by name. 3 days later, I came back to start the job. Her SUV was gone. The house was quiet. She'd left a key under the mat like we'd agreed. I let myself in and stood in the kitchen for a minute, just looking. Then I opened the windows, laid down drop cloths, and started pulling out the old cabinets. There's something satisfying about demo work, the way things come apart, the way you make space for something better. I worked all morning. Around 11, I heard the front door open. She came into the kitchen still wearing her white coat from the clinic. Her hair was down now. She looked tired. "I'm sorry I wasn't here when you arrived." "No problem. You left great notes." She looked around at the half-destroyed space, and her shoulders dropped, like she could finally breathe. "Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee?" "I'm good, thanks." She stayed anyway, leaned against the island, asked about my process, about how I got into woodworking. I told her about learning from my grandfather, about how I liked making things that people could touch and use every day. She smiled. A real smile this time, not the polite one from our first meeting. "That's beautiful," she said. Then her phone buzzed and the moment broke. She glanced at the screen and sighed. "I need to get back, but thank you. For starting." After she left, the kitchen felt different. Emptier. That afternoon, Mrs. Green came by. She knocked on the open back gate and walked right into the yard, like she owned it. "Just checking on the noise," she said cheerfully. "Making sure everything's all right." "Everything's fine, ma'am." She came closer, peering into the kitchen through the window. My late husband was a carpenter, too. I know how loud these projects can get. We talked for a few minutes. She told me about the neighborhood, about how everyone looked out for each other, about how the Blakes were such a lovely couple, but that Dr. Blake seemed lonely sometimes. "She deserves someone who sees her," Mrs. Green said. Then she caught herself. "I mean, she deserves to be happy." After she left, I stood there thinking about that slip. Someone who sees her. Over the next week, something shifted. Every morning when I arrived, there was coffee waiting on the island, a covered cup with my name on it. Amara started coming home earlier. She'd change out of her work clothes and sit at the island with her laptop, pretending to work while we talked. We talked about everything: her patients, my sister, the neighborhood, how long she'd lived in Atlanta. She asked about my business, about whether I liked working alone, about the woodworking videos I posted online. I asked about her practice, about whether she always wanted to be a doctor, about what she did when she wasn't working. "Honestly," she said one evening, "I eat takeout at this island and go to bed." The way she said it, like she was confessing something. "That sounds lonely," I said before I could stop myself. She looked at me for a long time. "It is." On Thursday, I went to the hardware store with Jamal to pick up specialty hinges. He loaded the truck bed while I paid. When I got back outside, he was leaning against the tailgate, grinning. "So, the doctor. What about her? She treating you like help or like a human?" "Like a human." "Uh-huh." He studied me. "She pretty?" "Jamal?" "I'm just saying, rich married women bring complications, man. Especially in neighborhoods like that where everybody watches everybody." "It's not like that." "Not yet." I didn't answer because I didn't know what to say. That afternoon, I was working in the kitchen when I heard voices in the foyer. Mrs. Green, talking to Amara. I stayed where I was, quiet, listening without meaning to. "I just think it's wonderful you're taking such an interest in the renovation," Mrs. Green said. "Most people just hire someone and forget about it." "Well, I want it done right." Of course. And that young man seems very skilled. Where did you find him?" "I saw his work on a project in Decatur. I requested him specifically." There was a pause. "Oh, you requested him?" "Yes. I thought his style would fit what I wanted." "And you've rearranged your schedule to be home more during the project?" Another pause. Longer this time. "I've adjusted a few appointments, yes. It makes decisions easier." Mrs. Green made a small sound. Not disapproving, exactly, but noticing. After she left, Amara came into the kitchen. Her face was carefully neutral. "Sorry about that. She means well, but she talks." "It's fine." But something had changed. I knew she'd chosen me, built her days around this project, around me, and I didn't know what to do with that information. That night, she asked if I wanted to stay for dinner. "I'm ordering anyway," she said, "and you've been here since 7 this morning." We ate takeout at the island, Thai food from containers, jazz playing softly from the ceiling speakers. She told me about her marriage, how she and Marcus met in grad school, how they'd moved to Atlanta for his job at the hospital, how the house was supposed to be the start of something but ended up feeling like a museum We sleep in separate rooms now, she said quietly. Have for over a year. He says it's because of his schedule, but... She trailed off. I told her about my ex, about how she only leaned on me when her life fell apart, then disappeared once she fixed things with her husband. I realized I was just a placeholder, I said, something to hold until she figured out what she really wanted. Amara looked at me across the island. The light from the pendant I'd installed caught her face just right. I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry you're sleeping alone in a house this big. Her bracelets clinked against the marble. Me too. We stayed up late that night, spreading blueprints on the island, talking about tile samples and cabinet pulls and lighting fixtures. But mostly we just talked. At some point she kicked off her heels and sat cross-legged on the island, wine glass in hand. She looked younger, less guarded. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Do you like this work? Building things for people who don't see you? I thought about it. I like the work itself, the creating. But yeah, sometimes I feel invisible. You're not invisible to me. The way she said it. Quiet, certain. I didn't know how to respond, so I just looked at her. She set down her glass, studied me for a long moment. Then she said it. Don't fall in love with me. My heart stopped. I leaned in without thinking, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. Then stop making it so easy. We both laughed, nervous, pretending it was a joke, but we both knew it wasn't. Just then, headlights swept across the kitchen window, a car rolling slowly past the house. Amara stiffened, slid off the island, turned off one of the lights. We should probably call it a night. Yeah. I gathered my things. She walked me to the door, but the easy warmth from earlier was gone, replaced with something careful, afraid. We need to be more structured about your hours, she said. People notice things in this neighborhood. I understand. It's not. I just don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. I know. But as I drove home, I kept replaying her words. Don't fall in love with me. Like she knew it was already too late. The next morning, the coffee was waiting in a plain mug instead of the personalized one from before. Her note was more formal, thanking me for my work, listing specific tasks. Over the next week, we tried to keep things professional, but small cracks kept appearing. Inside jokes, shared looks, the way she hummed along to my playlist when I played it quietly while I worked. She started texting me when I arrived and left. For safety, she said, but her replies came too fast, too eager. One evening, Mrs. Green came by with banana bread. For the hard-working young man, she said, loud enough for Amara to hear from inside. It's so nice to see his truck here so often. A woman needs help around the house when her husband is busy. The way she said it, all sugar on top, all implication underneath. After she left, Amara stood in the doorway, hands clasped, quiet. We should be careful, she said. People talk. I know. But later that night, I stayed an extra hour to finish a row of cabinets, so she wouldn't have to stare at a half-empty wall. When I locked up and walked to my truck, I paused on the porch, looked back at the dark kitchen window. Whatever bomb we'd lit that night over blueprints, and wine was still ticking, even if we were pretending it wasn't. 3 mornings later, I walked into the kitchen and found a sticky note next to the coffee. Thought this would go with the butcher block vibe, and a song title written underneath. I pulled out my phone and played it while I worked. Something low and jazzy, the kind of song you listen to at night when you're alone and don't mind being sad about it. She'd been thinking about my work when I wasn't there. That afternoon, when she came home early, she stopped in the doorway. You're playing your own playlist today. Yeah, hope that's okay. It's good, really good. She set down her bag. I might have looked you up, online. My hands stilled on the cabinet I was sanding. Yeah? You have a woodworking channel. I watched a few videos. I felt my face get hot. Those are just, I don't know, something I do late at night. They're beautiful. The way you talk about the wood, about what it wants to be. She moved closer. I may have saved your playlist to my phone. You did? She looked almost embarrassed. I play it sometimes, when the house feels too big. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just looked at her, and she looked back. And for a second, the kitchen felt smaller, warmer. Over the next few days, we fell into something that looked a lot like home. She'd come back from the clinic and take off her shoes in the foyer, walk barefoot into the kitchen, chat while I worked. Sometimes she'd sit at the island with her laptop, pretending to answer emails, but mostly just being there. I started making bad jokes about grout colors. She started laughing at them. One afternoon, Jamal stopped by to help install a heavy pantry piece. He took one look at Amara sitting at the island in her stockinged feet, hair down, and then looked at me with raised eyebrows. Later, in the driveway, he shook his head. Man, she looks at you like you're more than the dude with the drill. It's not like that. Sure, it's not. He loaded his tools. Just be careful. Rich married women bring complications you can't fix with a level and some wood glue. After he left, I stood there for a minute, thinking about the way she watched me work, the way she found excuses to stay in the kitchen even when I was just caulking trim. That evening, as I was locking up, she said something quiet, almost under her breath. I miss coming home to someone already here. I pretended not to hear, but I thought about it the whole drive home. On Friday, the storm hit. The forecast had been calling for it all week, but I went to the house anyway. I had a deadline and I didn't want to fall behind. By mid-afternoon, the sky had turned dark green. Thunder rumbled. My phone buzzed. Heading home early before the roads flood. Don't leave until it passes. She arrived 15 minutes later, soaked from running in from her car. I handed her a clean towel from my toolkit, and she laughed, embarrassed. I forgot an umbrella. You're a doctor. You're supposed to be smart. Clearly not about weather. The rain hit hard, sheets of it against the windows. The power flickered but stayed on. The sound wrapped around us like a cocoon. I kept working on small tasks, adjusting hinges, filling nail holes, things I could do without power tools. Amara made tea. Then later, she heated up leftovers and insisted I eat because you shouldn't drive in this yet. We sat at the island again, the rain and the jazz mixing together, and then we started talking, really talking. Marcus and I have slept in separate rooms for over a year, she said quietly. He says it's because he gets called in at odd hours, but I think we both just stopped trying. I'm sorry. Are you? She looked at me. You seem like you'd understand. About feeling invisible to someone who's supposed to see you. I told her about my ex, about how she only called when her marriage was falling apart, how I'd thought I was helping, but really I was just there. Convenient, safe. When she went back to him, I realized I'd been a placeholder, something to hold until she figured out what she really wanted. That's awful. It was honest, at least. I set down my fork. Have you thought about leaving? Every day. And then I think about what people would say, what I'd lose. This house, my practice's reputation, the life I built. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. So I stay, and eat takeout alone, and pretend everything's fine. You don't have to pretend with me." She looked at me for a long time. "I know. That's the problem." The rain kept falling. We kept talking. About loneliness. About what it means to be seen. About whether it's worse to be alone or to be lonely next to someone. At some point, Amara got up and stood by the back door, watching the water pour off the roof. "I wish it didn't feel so empty when you're not here." She said it so quiet, I almost missed it. When she realized what she'd said, she tried to laugh it off. "I mean the house. The house feels empty." But we both knew that wasn't what she meant. That night, I went home and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed, a notification. New subscriber on my woodworking channel. The username was half her first name, half her email format. She'd been watching me, listening to my voice, at night, when her house felt too big. I pressed the phone to my chest and closed my eyes. This was already too far gone. The next morning I woke up thinking about her comment, the new subscriber, all of it. At the house, she was quieter, but she watched me more openly. When I played my playlist, she hummed along. When I caught her, she blushed. "I told you, I've been listening. At night, when I can't sleep, your voice—" She stopped, started again. "It makes the house feel less empty." I put down my drill, looked at her. "You Googled me." "Yes." "You watched my videos." "Multiple. I'm sorry if that's weird." "It's not weird, it's just—" I didn't know how to finish that sentence. She moved closer. We were standing by the butcher block section, the one I'd insisted on. The wood grain warm under our hands. "I know this is complicated," she said. "I know I shouldn't." "You should," I interrupted. "Whatever you're feeling, you should feel it. You deserve that." Our hands were close on the wood. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat from her skin. She pulled back first. "I need to get ready for an appointment." But the air in the kitchen had changed. That evening, I stayed late to finish attaching hardware, the kind of detail work that takes patience but not much brain power. When I looked up, Amara was asleep at the island. Her head rested on her folded arms. Her bracelets clinked softly against the marble. She looked exhausted. Peaceful. I could have left a note. Should have left a note. Instead, I walked over and gently touched her shoulder. "Hey, you should go to bed." She stirred, blinked, looked up at me confused. "What time is it?" "Late." She tried to slide off the stool and stumbled, still half asleep. I caught her by the arms. "Easy." We were standing close. Too close. Her face inches from mine. I reached up and brushed a curl from her forehead. And then, without really thinking about it, I leaned in and pressed my forehead to hers. Just for a second. Soft. Gentle. Not sexual, but intimate in a way that felt more dangerous than kissing. When I pulled back, her eyes were wide. "Ethan, I know, I'm sorry, don't apologize." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Please don't apologize." We stood there for another heartbeat. Then I stepped back. "You should get some sleep." She nodded. Touched her forehead where mine had been. "Good night." "Good night." I drove home with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Over the next few days, we slipped into something that felt like playing house. She'd cook something simple while I worked. We'd eat together at the island. She'd do paperwork on her laptop while I finished up for the day. It felt easy, natural, like we'd been doing it for years instead of weeks. One night, I heard her on the phone in the next room, her voice bright and artificial. "Yes, the house will be perfect for your colleagues. I can't wait for you to see the kitchen." When she came back, her smile was tight. She was preparing this space for a life I wasn't part of. Then came the gala. On Thursday morning, I arrived to find her in a dress. Not scrubs, not casual clothes, a real dress. "There's a charity thing tonight," she said. "Marcus and I have to make an appearance." "You look beautiful." "Thank you." She fidgeted with her bracelet. "I hate these things." "Why?" "Because everyone's watching. Everyone's judging whether we look happy enough, whether we're the perfect couple they think we are." She laughed bitterly. "It's exhausting." Throughout the day, she kept coming back to check on the dress, the shoes, whether her makeup looked right. "What do you think?" she asked, standing in the kitchen doorway in the final version. "I think you look like the person this house was built for." Something flickered across her face. Sad. Grateful. Torn. Marcus picked her up at 6. I watched from the kitchen window as she got into his car, as they drove away together. And I stood there in the empty kitchen, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and hating myself for caring this much. The next morning she was different. Tired. Distant. She barely looked at me when I came in. I was in the middle of installing a cabinet pull when Mrs. Green appeared at the back gate. Again. "Morning." She had banana bread. Again. "Just wanted to thank you for being so patient with all our neighborhood noise." She walked right into the kitchen like she lived there, set the bread on the island, looked around. My, this is really coming together. You're here so often, Mr. Cole. Dr. Blake must be very hands-on with this project." "She has good taste," I said carefully. "Oh, I'm sure she does." Mrs. Green smiled. "It's just so nice that she has company, especially in the evenings. Marcus's car is rarely home before dark, you know. A woman shouldn't be alone so much." Amara, who'd been standing in the doorway, went very still. "Mrs. Green, thank you for the bread." "Of course, dear. Just being neighborly." She touched Amara's arm. "We all take care of each other on this street. Watch out for each other. Notice things." After she left, the kitchen was silent. "We should be careful," Amara said quietly. "People talk." "I know." But we both knew it was already too late for careful. 2 days later, I was working late when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Not Amara's SUV, different engine sound. A man's voice called from the foyer. "Amara, you home?" Marcus walked into the kitchen. Tall, well-dressed. That easy confidence of someone who's used to being respected. "You must be the contractor." He extended his hand. "Marcus Blake." "Ethan Cole." His handshake was firm, just a little too firm. "This is really coming together. Amara's told me a lot about your work." He looked around. "You're here quite a bit, aren't you?" "The job requires daily attention." Of course. He smiled, but his eyes stayed cold. "It's great that my wife has someone so dedicated. She's been home more lately. I think she enjoys the company." Amara appeared in the doorway. "Marcus, I didn't know you were stopping by." "Thought I'd finally meet the man transforming our kitchen." He draped an arm around her shoulders. Possessive. "We've been thinking about security, actually. With so much activity in the house lately. Might install some cameras, kitchen, entryways, just for safety." The air went out of my lungs. "That's smart," I managed. "Yeah, can never be too careful." He clapped me on the shoulder, hard. "Don't worry, though. I won't catch you doing anything you shouldn't in here, right?" He laughed, like it was a joke. It wasn't a joke. The next morning I got a text before I even got to the house. "Can you come at 2 instead? Need to sort some things out." When I arrived that afternoon, Amara barely looked at me. She stood by the island, handed me an envelope. "I'm paying you in full, for all the work. Even the parts that aren't quite finished yet. What? Why? We've decided to bring in another crew to finish the decorative elements. It's just easier. Amara. It's Dr. Blake. Her voice was sharp, professional. And this is just a business decision. Thank you for your excellent work, Mr. Cole. Mr. Cole. I stood there with the check in my hand, watching her refuse to meet my eyes. I don't understand. There's nothing to understand. The job is essentially done. You've been paid. I appreciate everything you did. I packed my tools slowly, taking in every detail. The lemon oil smell, the gleam of the butcher block, the jazz playing somewhere upstairs. She stood in the doorway the whole time, arms crossed, face carefully blank. Thank you, Mr. Cole. I nodded and walked out. I texted her that night. Something about a hinge that still needed adjustment. No response. I texted again the next day. Professional. Careful. Nothing. 48 hours later, I drove past her house during a gap between jobs. There was a different cruise truck in the driveway. Through the kitchen window, I could see men installing the crown molding I'd designed. And there was Amara, standing at the sink, staring at her phone, not moving. She didn't see me, or she pretended not to. I drove away feeling like I'd been erased. That night, Danny made me come over. Talk, she said. So I did. I told her everything. The coffee, the playlist, the forehead touch, how Amara had paid me off and replaced me and wouldn't even look at me anymore. I'm sorry, E. I really am. Danny squeezed my hand. But maybe this is good, before something really destructive happened. It already felt destructive. No, trust me. It could have been worse. I wanted to believe her. But that night, alone in my apartment, all I could think about was someone else finishing my cabinets, someone else standing in that lemon-scented kitchen with her. A week later, I was at the grocery store late at night, picking up basics I'd been ignoring. I turned a corner and nearly ran into a cart. Amara. Her eyes went wide for a split second before the mask came down. Mr. Cole, hello? Marcus was next to her, scrolling his phone, barely present. Dr. Blake. My voice sounded wrong, too formal, too distant. Marcus, this is Mr. Cole. He did our kitchen renovation. Marcus looked up. Oh, right. Thanks for that. He went right back to his phone. Babe, do we need more wine? I can't find that brand you like. He wandered down the aisle. Amara and I stood there, 2 feet apart. Might as well have been miles. I'm sorry, she whispered, for how things ended. It was a business decision, I understand. Ethan, an employee interrupted to ask if we needed help. The moment shattered. When I looked back, Marcus had returned. He draped his arm around Amara's shoulders and steered her toward the wine section. She looked back once. Brief. Haunted. I paid for my groceries and left. That night, I tried to sleep. Couldn't. Got up, tried to edit a video, couldn't focus on that either. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number at first. Then I realized it was Amara. Different phone. There was a photo. The finished corner of the kitchen. Someone else's cabinets over my design. Below it, they don't see what you saw. My heart was in my throat. I stared at the photo. At the butcher block we'd chosen together. At the way the light hit the island. I typed and deleted 5 different responses. Finally, it looks good. The room always knew what it wanted to be. 3 minutes later, a voice note appeared. I pressed play. Her voice was tired, soft. I still play your playlist when I can't sleep. Silence. Then, if you ever drive by late and the porch light is on, it means I'm awake in the kitchen, that's all. I sat there in the dark, listening to it again. And again, a signal, an invitation, a crack in the door she'd tried to close. 3 nights passed. I didn't act on it, told myself I wouldn't. But I thought about it constantly, imagined driving by, seeing the light burning, knowing what it meant. Danny noticed I was distracted. Delete her number. I need it for receipts. Liar! She wasn't wrong. On Saturday night, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my keys, got in my truck, drove. The streets were empty. The neighborhood quiet. When her house came into view, my hands tightened on the steering wheel. The porch light was on, bright against the red brick. Too bright for nearly 2 a.m. I slowed down, looked at the kitchen window, saw the silhouette of someone at the island. Amara. I drove to the end of the street, turned around, wrestled with myself. Then I parked a block away, killed the engine, sat in the dark. After several minutes, I reached into my tool bag, pulled out my old tape measure, the one I'd used on every job for years, the one that had been with me through everything. I got out of the truck. I walked to her house, up the path, the porch light buzzing softly above the door. I didn't knock, didn't ring the bell. I set the tape measure on the mat, placed a folded note next to it. Kitchen's done when you say it is. I stood there for a second, fingers on the note, knowing this was either the stupidest thing I'd ever done or the bravest. Then I turned and walked away. I made it to the sidewalk when I heard the click of the door opening. I stopped. Didn't turn around immediately. The lemon oil smell drifted out on the night air. Finally, I looked back. Amara stood in the doorway, backlit by the interior lights, wearing a sweatshirt I recognized as one I'd thought I lost months ago. She looked down at the tape measure, picked it up, read the note. Then she looked at me. We stood there, frozen, the porch light humming above us. Ethan. My name. Soft, not Mr. Cole. I walked back to the steps, didn't go up them, just stood at the bottom. You shouldn't have come, she said. I know. The porch light, I didn't think you'd actually... I know. She held the tape measure to her chest. Nothing's changed. Marcus is still... We're still... I know that too. Then why are you here? Because you left the light on. She looked down at the tape measure in her hands. They finished the kitchen. It looks perfect. Everyone says so. But the room doesn't feel like itself when you're not in it. The admission hung in the air between us. I've been trying to move on, I said. It's not working. Me neither. We were quiet for a long time. The neighborhood silent except for crickets and distant traffic. Finally, she stepped back, into the house. But she didn't close the door. She set the tape measure on a small table just inside the entryway, kept one hand on the doorframe. You should go, she whispered. I know. But neither of us moved. The door stayed half open. The porch light stayed on. And I understood, finally, what this was. What we were. Not an ending. Not a beginning. Just a door that would never fully close. The next morning I woke up in my own bed. My tape measure was gone. I felt its absence every time I reached for my tools. Over the following days, life continued. I took on a new job with Jamal. Visited Danny at the salon. Tried to settle into routine. Sometimes I drove past her neighborhood. Not always. But sometimes. Sometimes the porch light was on. Sometimes it wasn't. I didn't stop every time. Couldn't. That would have been too much. But I always slowed down. Always looked. Always knew what it meant. One night, weeks later, I was driving home from a late job. Out of habit, I took the long way. the route that passed her street. As I approached, I saw the house in the distance. The porch light glowed soft against the brick. I slowed the truck, looked at the kitchen window, saw the faint outline of someone sitting at the island in the dark. I didn't stop, but I smiled. Sad, grateful, haunted, because some doors stay cracked, and some lights stay on, and some people you never really leave, even when you drive away. So, if you ever drive past a big brick house with the porch light burning at 2 a.m, just know there's someone inside still standing in a doorway. They're not sure they're brave enough to close. Some doors stay cracked. Tell me, would you have walked away?